Hey YouTubers, welcome. This is Remington Steele with another edition of Warhammer Chat. Now, today is a very special episode, not least because I'm wearing my signatory mask. Now you may ask yourself, why Remington are you wearing this mask? And I would reply to you, well, this is Warhammer Fantasy, my friends. This is not Warhammer reality. So with that in mind, this will be the first of a series of videos I'm going to be making about alternative Warhammer armies. Now, this wasn't my idea. This has already been done to quite a marvellous degree of accuracy, skill and imagination, not least by one Mathias Eliasson. Now, you can download for free PDF Warhammer 8th edition army books for the following alternative armies. Albion, so we'll be looking at the British, the ancient Britons, if you like. The Amazons. Arabi, personal favourite of mine, being half Middle Eastern. Cathay, or ancient Chinese. Dogs of War. Estalia being kind of Spain, I guess. Fimir. The Fimir are a kind of a race of swamp beings with huge noses. Halflings. Hobgoblins. Kingdoms of Ind. Kingdoms of Ind are ancient Indians. Not Native American, but East Asian Indians. Kislev. Nippon, or Japanese, and the Norse. Now, today's episode is going to be one of a few which is dedicated to the alternative Halfling army for Warhammer. Now, why on earth would you want to choose an army of Halflings? And I would have to reply to you, I don't blame you, because without doubt these are some of the most pathetic beings in the Warhammer world. However, if you like a challenge, if you like the underdog, if you like amazingly comedy-like figures, if you like the idea of a bunch of halfling chefs catapulting a hot pot full of smelly acidic stew over a goblin chieftain and killing him, then perhaps the Halfling army is for you. Now, for those Warhammer fantasy purists, I would ask you to go along with this and to give this a go, because although they are not advocated especially by Games Workshop, I would like to think that these army books, that are the alternative army books, are fully adaptable. And I think it would be really cool to let these even engage in tournaments. And at the very least, I would ask you to check out and read the army books for yourself, especially the Halfling ones. But if you can't be asked to do that, well then, stick with me and I will give you a general overview. Very soon, I will be showing you my work in progress of my Halfling army. Well, there's many other ways you can adapt the Halflings to work for you. You could possibly use them as Noblars in an ogre army. In fact, one of the ogre armies is called the Feastmaster tribe, if I'm not mistaken. And they hang around Halflings, hobbits, because they are, without doubt, the most talented cooks and chefs in the Warhammer world. And an ogre lives his life through the whims of his stomach, if you like. So an ogre could do a lot worse then hang around some halflings, because without doubt they would be the best fed ogres. Other ways you can use the halflings, well, you could perhaps use them as an alternative empire army. The halflings have alternative things like the Kathleen the steam tank, which you could use as an empire steam tank, for example. They have many different skirmishers, they have their own warriors. And another way you could use the halflings would be as a natural counterpoint to a goblin army, because of all the creatures in the Warhammer world, halflings probably in stat lines alone resemble goblins. But there's two notable differences. One of those is bow skill. In fact, three differences. One of those is bow skill. Halflings are naturally good shots, and they come with a bow skill of at least 4. Halflings are also very, very quick-witted, and a halfling's initiative will be much higher than a human's or goblin's stat line. Finally, a halfling's leadership value is very, very high. Halflings have a decent leadership. A leadership of 8, and an initiative of 5, and a bow skill of 4. Now, some halflings will, for instance, the rangers will get a bow skill of 5 even, so they're really good shots. So, in a halfling army, you'd be wise to employ a lot of archers. But I'm going to go through the book, and we're going to look at the various models. We're going to look at the various troop types in the core, the special, and the rares in a halfling army. So, what makes the halflings special? What are their special rules in general? So, there's 2 main things. Firstly, halflings are short and stout, which means they're small and fat. Due to their small stature and high agility, the halflings can easily avoid incoming blows by dodging to the side or beneath the legs of their attacker. All models with this rule are -1 to hit in close combat. So, the average weapon skill of a halfling, like goblins, is only weapon skill 2. So most creatures in the Warhammer world will be hitting a halfling on a 3 or a 4. Now, this kind of balances the odds a little bit by making halflings always -1 to hit in close combat, which is kind of, it makes up for their weapon skill 2. All halflings have this rule. The second main halfling rule, which will affect the whole army, is something called Unquenchable Appetite. Halflings enjoy nothing more than to eat. On an ordinary day, a halfling eats 6 meals a day. And once one meal is finished, they immediately look forward to the next. The halfling militia has no less of an appetite than the civilian folk, and in order to fight effectively, halfling regiments need at least a quick snack before they get stuck into a fight. At the start of the game, after all models in both armies have been deployed, the halfling player must roll a d6 for each of his units and consult the before battle meal table. The effects of the meal last for the duration of the game, unless otherwise noted. So, Unquenchable Appetite is the rule that engages all halfling regiments. Roll a d6. On a roll of a 1, you get stale rations. The regiment is completely demoralised, and they suffer a -1 penalty on all leadership tests they are required to take. At the same time, though, they are so furious about fighting before getting a good meal that the unit becomes subject to hatred. So that means they re-roll to hit in the first round of combat, which, as I said, could be very useful because halflings don't have a very high weapon skill. If you roll a 2 or a 3, on the D6, you get pepper cakes and buttermilk. The unit may re-roll any failed psychology test. That's quite handy. The Halflings aren't going to be the best in combat, but they make up for this with high leadership. And so some of the units will become stubborn as I go through them later on. But this is especially a kind of a nice little thing. A roll of a 2 or 3, you re-roll any failed psychology test. On a roll of a 4 or a 5, bacon strips and berry wine. The unit gains +1 strength in their first round of close combat. So yet again, we see another rule that kind of evens the odds a bit. Halflings only have a natural strength of 2. So this would bring them up in line with their human counterparts and giving them strength of 3. Not too bad at all. And you've got to remember, a halfling model, the basic halfling model, is only something like 3 or 4 points. So you could really get bang for your buck. On a roll of the 6 on your D6 before battle, oxtail soup and cinnamon brandy, the unit becomes stubborn. Very handy indeed, because you will be losing a lot of combats, I imagine. And only the most canny halfling commander can pull victory out of the jaws of defeat. And this is something that could really help you do that. So there you have a brief introduction into the world of Warhammer Halfling Army. In the next video, I'll be showing you pictures from my personal collection of Halflings and matching them with core, special and rare troops from the alternative Halfling army list. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please comment or subscribe. And I'll see you next time. Take care.